The negative thought cycle goes something like this. You start with a thought, negative thought, you're projecting into the future, you are catastrophizing, maybe you're jumping to conclusions, making assumptions, mind reading. So it starts with a thought. So whatever the thought is, it's going to be negative, and you're probably thinking about the future or something that hasn't happened yet, or maybe you're fixated on something that already has happened in the past. But the whatever it's if it's future oriented or past oriented, it's affecting you right now. And it's causing the anxiety. So the negative thought cycle starts with the negative thought that you have, and then it goes to an emotion. And whatever it is that you're thinking, it's either going to be anxiety because you're worried about something that has happened. Maybe it's regret or guilt of something that has happened in the past. Maybe you said something that you wish you wouldn't have, or you did something that you wish you wouldn't have done. And all of that is affecting how you are feeling in the moment right now. So starts with your thoughts, the negative thoughts, projecting to the future or perhaps something in the past. And then it affects how you behave after you feel a certain way, you have anxiety, then it affects how you behave. So if you have regret and guilt, for instance, you're probably beating yourself up and you have the inner critic. This inner critic is right there. Sometimes it whispers in your ear and sometimes it yells in your ear, but it constantly beating yourself up. And some of you are ruminating on that. You ruminate, you obsess over the thinking, and you start to believe this false narrative that this negative thought cycle has trapped you in. And so when you realize that you're having this negative thought, that what I call thinking traps or a cognitive distortion, that's when you're able to identify, okay, what am I believing in here? So when you start to believe something that you don't know to be true, you don't have evidence for it. Let's say it's circumstantial evidence, but it feels true, but it's not true, but it can affect how you feel and it can affect how you behave. So when you realize that your thoughts are based in something that you think is true, that we call that circumstantial evidence. When you realize that, then you have to work on that thought. What is true? What evidence do you have for feeling the way that you feel? Now, you might have some evidence for it, but more than likely, you're going to have a lot of evidence against that unhelpful thought, right? So focus on the evidence that you have. And then once you realize, okay, yeah, I'm thinking too much of the future here. I don't know about the future, what's going to happen. I'm predicting, I'm jumping to conclusions, I'm catastrophizing. Or if you are thinking about the past, something that you regret and feel guilty for, when you spend all your time thinking about a different time, whether it's forward thinking or backward thinking, it takes up a lot of your thoughts and consumption, and you are just white, right? You're emotionally drained. And you start having these negative thoughts about yourself, and maybe you start saying, well, I shouldn't be feeling this way. I shouldn't be thinking that way. I should be doing this. I should have done that. And then you start to personalizing it and shouldings, and that's not helpful either. So what is helpful? When you find yourself in this negative thought loop, the overthinking, the catastrophizing, you racing thoughts, you can't get it out of your mind. What do you do? Well, first thing is that you recognize the thoughts are not accurate. And then ask yourself, what is accurate? What is the evidence that I have? I need to focus on what I know to be true more than what I think is true. And that's a lot easier said than done. But that is going to really help transform what it is that you believe and how what you believe affects you. And so it takes a lot of practice, especially if you are prone to beat yourself up or you fall into this certain pattern that everything that you do is wrong. It's all about you. You are a bad person. You're not good enough. You're a failure. So when you are prone to thinking that this is going to take a lot of effort, it's going to be hard. But as you learn it, just like you were learning how to ride a bike, somebody taught you, put training wheels on, probably, and probably held on to the bike when they took the training wheels off and it was a little wobbly. Maybe you fell, but eventually you learned and it took time. You didn't just automatically learn how to ride a bike. You probably got hurt. You had to fall down and get back up and keep going. Well, this is exactly the same, right? So we're talking about your emotions here, not physically riding a bike, but practice, practice, practice. So identify what the false thinking is, and then be able to focus on what we call an alternative thought, another way of thinking about the situation. How else can you interpret the situation? Is there another way to think about it? Are you leaving things out, or are you not remembering? So think about what you know to be true and then focus on that. So whenever you start to have a negative thought, don't let it turn into a negative thought cycle. You want to stop it, identify it, and then focus on what you know to be true. And so the idea, when you can reframe those negative thoughts into a more positive, more evidence-based, then it will help you in the moment. It'll help you realize, oh, I don't need to worry about the future on this particular thing. I don't need to hang on to this guilt. I don't need to hang on to this grudge. And so chances are how you are feeling right now in the anxiety that you're having, the stress that you're having, it's affecting you because it's based on either a future or a past event. You know, a future is making an assumptions, the what ifs and maybes. The past is something that has happened. But when you are locked into this in this negative thought loop, it's very difficult to get out unless you're able to identify the evidence and focus on that, just like I said. And some of you may need to rewatch this and be reminded every day you may need to be working on this. So write down what it is that you're thinking, all the thoughts that you're having, all the worries that you're having, and then and then ask yourself, is this true? Do I have evidence for this? Not just making assumptions, but do I have evidence for this? And then write down what's the alternative thought, the more positive thought, the evidence-based thoughts. So write down all of your thoughts, and how you feel is valid, but it might be influenced by what you're thinking about. And if you're thinking about something that's not accurate, then you can work through that, right? So tell yourself what you know to be true, write it down. And then once you write it down, repeat it in your mind over and over again. And every time you start to have that negative thoughts, those racing thoughts, obsessive thoughts, pull it back, step back, and look what you wrote down. That's going to help you. And maybe you need to write on a Post-it note and put it up on your computer or put it up on a mirror and say, don't focus on circumstantial evidence. Focus on what I know to be true. Put down, are you having a thinking trap? And you say, yeah, I'm having a thinking trap. Well, then you focus on the alternative thought, reframe that, and practice this, practice this, practice this. I can't stress that enough. Write it down until you have it where it just comes natural, where you've identified you're having a thinking trap. Then you can say, okay, well, how else can I think about this situation? How can I focus on the evidence? And then let it go. And you might have to do that multiple times a day. And that's okay. But eventually it's going to come natural, and you're going to get through this cycle and recognize before it even happens. But it's like I said, it's not going to happen overnight. All right? You got this. Let me know if this has been helpful. I want to know if you have questions. I want to be able to help you with your anxiety. I want to help you beat it. I'm a licensed therapist, and this is what I do every single day of my job. And I want to be able to help you as well. So be sure to follow and subscribe to my channel. And I want this to be encouraging to you. All right. Thanks. Bye.